Terraria's support type weaponry has always been a little hit or miss, with things like the Klinger Staff, Frost Hydra, and Nimbus Rod all being good, but a little niche throughout the game. You see, the problem with these weapons are, 9 times out of 10, it's just quicker to continue killing with your primary weapon than to switch and place something else down. Today, however, we're going to be looking at another support type sentry thing that does actually move around, allowing you to switch to your main weapon and forget about it. Of course, I'm talking about the Magnet Sphere. This is one of these weapons I hardly hear anyone talk about, so the question is it worth getting? Before we do jump into it though, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe, as it truly helps out the channel. Alrighty, let's see how you can get this thing. The Magnet Sphere is actually a post-Plantera dungeon drop, meaning once you defeated this boss, you're going to head over there and be on the lookout for 3 enemies in particular: Blue Armored Bones, Hell Armored Bones, and Rusty Armored Bones. Luckily for us, these are some of the most common enemies in the post-Plantera dungeon, and each spawn behind a different background wall, meaning wherever you are in the dungeon, you'll see them about. The only catch is though, being dropped from such a common enemy means the drop rate is abysmal, giving you a measly 0.67% chance to get 1-2 drop. Now, to be honest, in most cases, if you build a simple layer farm like this, it should only take you about half an hour or so to get one. But this is me we're talking about. So not only did I get literally every other obtainable item in the dungeon, but also a corrupt key before I got my Magnet Sphere to drop. I have literally no words. Either way, hopefully you'll be a bit luckier than me and have a pretty easy time getting your hands on this thing. Okay then, let's see what it can do. As mentioned, the Magnet Sphere isn't exactly a primary weapon, firing a single slow-moving sign sphere that travels in a straight line for 15 seconds, which covers about 52 tiles. Now, due to the nature of this weapon, we can't test its DPS on dummies. However, by filling the area with green slimes which have 0 defense, we're able to get an accurate-ish reading of its true damage output. As you can see, compared to other primary weapons, it is pretty poor, getting beaten by Razorpine on single targets and even the Shadow Beam Staff on groups. However, something to remember is, this 300 odd DPS is in addition to whatever your main weapon is, meaning as a complementary weapon, it really is quite solid. Also, did I mention it can ricochet off walls, making it especially effective in tight rooms? Right, with this in mind, let's get a better idea of how it performs. Going forward, we will be using this to complement other mage weapons, as it really isn't designed for primary use. As you can see though, it does do a pretty good job to increase your DPS against lines of enemies, especially with the Spectre Armor set bonus active. Also, due to the sphere's movement, it can be very useful against tankier, fast-moving targets. However, I wouldn't count on it keeping up with everything, and of course to change the direction, you will have to cast it again. So I mean, at this point, what about bosses? Well, to be completely honest, the Magnet Sphere works extremely well against Golem, and that's really it. Like seriously though, this made an already fast Golem kill with a Razorpine even quicker, for basically the cost of nothing. Unfortunately though, the same cannot be said against the Cultist, being almost entirely useless due to this boss's fast erratic movement. Even when casting it basically at point blank range, the ball will either drift too far or not be placed close enough to even hit the boss full stop. And I mean, past this point, it just doesn't really deal anywhere near enough damage to be viable during the pillars, and if anything, the inconvenience of casting it will actually nerf your overall damage output. Even with the solar pillar, which includes a much more grounded selection of enemies, the sphere just wasn't cutting it for me. But I mean, if you are looking at farming earlier events, such as the Frost Moon and Pumpkin Moon, the Magnet Sphere will complement nicely, creating a nice little barrier around the player that can deal with non-boss enemies quite well, giving you time to focus on the larger targets. So yeah, the Magnet Sphere is quite an odd one, being an almost turret-type mage weapon that could get away with being a sentry. The only thing is though, with its obtainability being very RNG-based, I wouldn't imagine anyone going out of their way to farm this thing in a playthrough. This has been sockrteez, and I'll see you in the next one.